Okay. Hello, sir.
Hello,
How
how are
are you
you?
doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're good. I know we're well, but we're good.
Yeah,
How
I'm
was the
guessing it's
semester?
the midterm time now.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Chal- chal.
कैसे जा रहा है आपका semester?
The same. It's picking up. So now that we've already assigned homeworks, it's time for grading.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a pile of grading that I need to do by this weekend.
Okay. So let's dive deep
Hmm.
into the questions. Beginning with your childhood.
Mhm.
How was your childhood like? Where did you grow up?
So
I think. Sorry,
sorry,
can you
go
speak a
ahead. Go
bit
ahead.
louder?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So I grew up in Hyderabad. I was born there, and I was there till my 12th grade. Um, my childhood, um, how do I put that? I would say it was sheltered still. Okay, so, typical, I have three sisters. We stayed at home, played around, uh, went to school. School was fine for me. Nothing exceptional happening there.
No trauma.
No trouble. And hanging out with friends, that's it.
Any stories that you would remember from your childhood? Something that you used to do?
Oh, that's like so long ago. Um, hmm. I tend to black out my memories and stuff.
Okay.
So I think the earliest memories I would be able to recall are from my undergrad time.
Oh wow.
Or
Anything
what's
before that is something I don't know if ever be able to recall that. So undergrad, I actually went to GIK.
Mm.
So about, I think, 8 to 9 months of the year I was there, and then 3 to 4 months roughly I stayed in Hyderabad when on during my vacations. So from my ninth grade, so I made some friends in my ninth grade, who I'm still friends with. They're my oldest friends. So during my vacation, during my undergrad time, those two friends I used to meet up with them throughout the summer break. Uh, my parents used to be mad at me for not being at home because most during those 3 months, I used to stay out all the time at odd hours. I only came home to sleep. So you can imagine this is your time. You're probably going through the same experiences.
Mm, only Swiss.
so? Where did you go after your undergrad? I mean, did you go abroad to study?
Yes. So after my undergrad, there was a year-long period when I was applying to places, and then I went to US after my bachelor's degree for both my master's and PhD, to Georgia Institute of Technology. So I stayed there for 6 years, and I returned, I think, in January 2015, and I've been here at Habib since August 2015.
So when you were in America, what was that experience like coming from Pakistan and all?
So the obvious differences were there, but I wouldn't say that it was too out there. Perhaps because I already had a 4 year undergrad experience of staying in a hostel. So it wasn't completely out there for me, something that I had to get used to. But yes, something that was new for me is that uh, the cultural diversity over there, making friends again, and the work. So I spend most of my time there in the lab. So that was something new to me. It's similar to what perhaps you guys experience over here. That I got up, went to the lab, came back home to sleep, and then repeat the same cycle again.
Was there anything that you did where you step out of your comfort zone? Something new that you tried?
Few things just on the top of my head. I learned salsa, dancing, and then I took a class in French, learning French.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't recall either of those now, but
I can imagine you doing salsa.
yeah, but it was fun. It was fun.
So, what did you do your PhD on?
So my PhD is in electrical and computer engineering. The specific problem that I worked on is related to robotics. So think of any robot, or for that matter, any legged animal as well. They have different styles of walking. So a horse can walk, it can also gallop. There are actually six different ways it can move its legs. If you construct a robot with legs as well, you have the same idea. You can construct different ways to make it walk. So how do you make it transition from one way of walking to another? So that's the problem that I worked
That's interesting.
Yeah. So another question that we asked to faculty members who have gone abroad and have stayed there, and 6 years is a long-ish time. How do you retain your Pakistani identity, or do you find it somewhere there?
There were a lot of Pakistanis there.
Mhm.
So a lot of Pakistanis go to Georgia Tech. Uh, so I guess it wasn't as difficult to retain my identity. Uh, you get to meet with all those folks regularly. There's a Pakistan Student Association over there. There are Eid events happening, some other gatherings happening, like say once every semester. We used to have these barbecue sessions, or sort of supper party at the Graduate Living Center every semester. So that's how you connect to different people over there. I think the more difficult part was me to how to connect with other people out,
Mhm.
to get out there and
Hmm.
meet with people from other cultures.
Okay. So, what made you come to Habib?
When I was at Georgia Tech, I think we got a visit from some folks at Habib. I now can't recall who it was. It was either Wasif or Anzar. So they came and shared their idea about Habib University, the mission of Habib University. So that's something that was new to me, inspiring for me. So two things came across as something that I would want to contribute to. One was the model of a broad education to liberal arts, going from an educational model from Pakistan. So all my school education, high school, undergrad, it was always fixed. During my undergrad, we had the similar elective system, so I had a chance to take multiple electives. So the desire for making a choice and exploring option was there, but when I went to Georgia Tech, that just exponentially increased. So I did exactly that. So a lot of my students who came from Pakistan for the PhD program, they had very clear ideas about what kind of work they wanted to do, what was the research that they had to do, and they got started on it from the very first semester. For 1.5 years, I was actually exploring over there. So I took courses in a mathematics program. I took courses in physics. I took courses in biomedical engineering, electrical and computer engineering, exploring different areas. I took a game design course, a history course. So that was something that I found very appealing to me. That this is something that should be available to everyone. So that's one reason. The other reason was the claim that education should be accessible to everyone.
Hmm.
That's something, both of these were something that inspired me to join here. Uh, Lastly, obviously, it was a new university, so that was also exciting for me that I was starting at the ground level and I will be able to contribute to building it up.
8 years.
Yeah.
So the first 2 points that you mentioned, the liberal core and the accessibility to education, do you think Habib has been successful in achieving that?
Yes, it has already always existed from the very first year. Right? This is the very first batch that was inducted, went through this experience. It has continued till this day. Uh, we can comment on if you think binary. Yes, it exists.
Mhm.
We can comment on can we do more, and there's all the answer would always be yes. We can always do more.
Right. You mentioned that you took a lot of different types of courses, but most of them were still pretty sciencey. Back when you were a kid, did you always go towards science subjects?
Yes. Whether I think as I was mentioning, as a kid, most of your classes are fixed. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get a choice. But I did tend to like the science courses, science, math. Uh, I still performed well in the other courses, but I prefer to study for those. I didn't have to be forced to study for the other. I had to be forced to study for the other subjects. So I still love science, math, technology. So that's something that's still my first love, you could say. Um, and I can say that because my wife will never hear this. But so that's why most of the courses that I explored over there were in the domain of science.
So, what hobbies do you have besides circuits?
Circuits is actually not my hobby.
Okay.
So I have degrees in electrical engineering, but the I actually did not touch any circuit even once during my 6 years of graduate study.
Oh.
My graduate studies are, or the things I actually like, are more mathematical based.
Okay.
So, but hobbies, yes. Uh, Nothing in particular. So in undergrad, during undergrad time, what I explored the most was around that time anime was becoming popular. So I started anime when all these popular animes were just starting up, 5 episodes
Hmm.
into them. uh, I watched a lot of TV at that time. I started e-gaming over time, so that has continued, although the frequency has dwindled.
Okay, so, what kind of movies do you like to watch?
In terms of genres, I would say sci-fi, some action adventure, not all, uh, comedy.
Okay. Do you watch stand-up comedy?
I do. Uh, Again, with varying frequency.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it mostly Western content that you consume, or?
Mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen some Pakistani dramas as well.
Okay.
I've seen some of those Indian web shows as well,
Okay.
but mostly, yeah.
And what is your taste in music?
I don't know if I can. I have a well-defined taste in music.
Sure, you
So,
can say
so
anything here.
it's. I think it is just I listen to a song. If I like it, I add it to my collection.
Okay, so you don't, as in, do you have a favorite band or singer?
Not at the moment.
So, what are three things that you really like about the students at Habib, and three things that you don't?
That's a tough one. Three things that I like.
You can begin with the dislike so that they like you more than.
And, three things that I dislike. I'll actually be hard pressed to come up with things that I dislike that are common to the entire student body. I've had a very good experience all the time that I've taught here. Uh, I've never had a class where I disliked anyone, or a class that consistently even had a bad habit that I said it should go away. Uh, One thing, now if I recall, something that I would like Habib students to do more is take initiative. So compared to the resources that were available to us during our undergrad times, there are a lot more resources available right now. Uh, and there's a lot of university support as well. So if I think back to my undergrad days, uh, everyone I came across, including myself, we were doing things, taking, as in we were in engineering, so we were building things, let's say participating in competitions. I don't see that happening a lot. Uh, so that's something that I think I would want to change. In terms of what I like about the students that I teach is that I have never had a class where I felt that any of the students were not making an effort, were not working.
So, what
So,
you said about taking initiatives, why do you think students here are not more into? I mean, there are students who do, but then why is the ratio so less?
so a part of it is related to just the history of the university. So all of us, most of the faculty has gone to universities with a long history compared to Habib. So, for example, if I talk about my undergrad days at GIK, so we had a whole score of seniors who graduated before us. They had set up things, uh, and we saw them doing things, and we followed in their footsteps. So, I guess over here, one advantage is that not only do students have to take initiatives, they have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay. So exploring what's out there and then engaging yourself in it. So that could be one reason. COVID did not help with that. There was a
Mm.
break in the middle, and even if the earlier students were doing some things that did not carry forward to the post-COVID batches. So that's sad. Um, what could be other possible reasons? Perhaps that's one reason that I can think of at the moment.
Okay. So, you mentioned COVID, and considering that COVID took a great mental toll on a lot of students. So, what do you think about students being emotionally vulnerable in front of professors? Have you ever faced that? And if yes, if not, then how do you plan on, dealing with it? I think you might have faced that somehow. So, how do you deal with that?
So yes, students are emotionally vulnerable. It's not just related to COVID.
Yeah, I mean,
As human
generally,
beings, uh, we can't get rid of our emotion, nor should we. Emotions. Yeah, students sometimes are emotionally vulnerable. They come to me. Uh, the best I can do is just listen to them, suppose. Uh, I think most of the times, if you just listen to someone, that's like 80%. So it solves the problem, anyways.
Is there a course at Habib that you would like to sit in on?
A lot of them.
Name your top
So,
three.
um, so the liberal core courses,
Mhm.
I would like to sit in modernity and PAMSA. There are a number of courses in the design stream in CND that I would like to sit in. I think there's a course on systemic design.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's something that I would want to sit in. In fact, if you give me any program, I can give you a list of courses that I would like to sit in and on.
What instrument would you learn at Habib if you could?
Uh, and I can choose any option, and Habib will facilitate me in learning that, or the ones that are taught over here.
Well, the ones that are taught, but I mean, if you have a very unique answer, then why not?
It's not a unique answer. So I like string instruments. So I know Habib teaches violin, uh, but I would want to learn rhubarb.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
If you sat in the Jahan Urdu course, not even only sat, took it, would you pass it?
Passing is 60%, so I think I'll be able to score 60%.
Okay, fair.
So, considering that you've spent 8 years here, what what are the changes that you see in yourself from when you entered Habib versus now?
The obvious changes would be that I'm fatter and I have white hair. Um Other than that,
Well, I did see your pictures from 2015.
so you can attest to that. Um, hmm. Other than that, I would say that an increase in patience. So I was starting out when I was not just starting out in the university.
Mhm.
I was starting out with my teaching career.
Right.
So the courses that I taught over here were the very first ones that I had ever taught. So I think in terms of my teaching abilities, it has improved slightly. My patience has increased, so that would be the second change that I can observe in me. Um, Third would be the physical differences. Yeah, let's go with those.
I'll add one.
Okay.
Sorry, this is you. You can go ahead and ask another question.
So, what is something that you do to relax yourself? So, something that makes you happy?
Something that makes me happy. Uh, so I'll preface that with my schedule is similar to my students. So it's mostly Habib centric that I come in Habib work. There is some pending work that I also have to do at home. Weekends are also grading and Habib work. So having said that, something that makes me happy is uh, seeing my daughters as soon as I get home.
How old are they?
So my elder daughter is 3.5 years old now. The younger one is 5 months old.
Oh.
No, all faculty members say the same thing that their life is also Habib. And I like, why is everyone so in Habib like all the time? Even we're in Habib all the time, and even the professors are. Like, is there no real work-life balance then?
So the work life balance. So one, the nature of our work over here, it's not just a job that you're doing, it's an ecosystem that you're buying
Yeah,
into.
it's not a 9 to 5.
Yeah. As for the work life balance, balance, if we talk about giving time to family or friends, yes, that's something that we can all work on to modulate that, so that we are able to give enough time to our family and friends. Uh, but I don't think it would ever be that you can disconnect from this world at a particular hour of the clock and then
Right.
switch to another one.
Okay, so what is something that you see in the students in Habib and think I wish I had that when I was a student?
Awareness.
Mhm.
So, for if I think back to my time, I think I was not even a fraction as thoughtful as students that I teach.
What do you mean by thoughtful?
Thoughtful as in, so even when I do admission interviews to the students that are applying to Habib, the just the experiences that they have had are so varied and so extensive that if I think back to my time when I was applying to undergrad, I did not have those experiences. And then while I'm teaching these students at Habib, the discussions that you have with them, their perspective on things, anything that you're talking about, I think they have a students. You all have a much broader perspective, thinking about things from a systems level, from multiple points of view that I don't think that I had at that time in my life.
Can you recall a funny or an interesting student encounter
A funny encounter.
or interesting story?
Hmm. फनी जो है, आई डोंट थिंक कि जो है इन पर्सन इनकाउंटर है फनी जो है. I always recall this one comment that I got in my course evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first batches that I was teaching जो है 2018 वाले ही थे. तो उसमें आई डोंट रिकॉल द कोर्स नाउ किस कोर्स पे मिला था, लेकिन जो है आई गॉट दिस फीडबैक, द क्वालिटेटिव कमेंट्स वन, कि आता शाता कुछ नहीं है और something along those lines. I don't even recall the exact words, but जो है something along those lines. That's
Student
something
actually
that I
wrote
remember.
that.
Yeah.
तो सारे स्टूडेंट फीडबैक मतलब मिलते हैं, हम लोग एक बार
हाँ,
पढ़ते
सारे
हैं.
सब पढ़ता है.
आई थिंक अब जो है वो शायद फिल्टर कर देते हैं, लेकिन जो है शुरू शुरू में तो जो है there was no filter in between, it was just directly transmitted. Because I even recall कि जो है those sugar cube envelopes, in the beginning you could even get a completely empty envelope जो है.
Okay.
Up to I think Student Life puts in some default thing in there.
Yeah, वो तो एक sticker डालते हैं, but I think you are now a very famous professor. You have a good fan base amongst the DSSC students. So how do you feel about that fame?
Fame. फेम तो नहीं, आई वुड से इन्फमी होगी कि फेल बहुत करते हैं. आई थिंक आई वुड फील फ्लैटर्ड एंड लव्ड जो है. As a faculty member, my primary goal is students' education. Right? So every course we teach, we put in all our effort, and you do that to in hopes that the students that are in front of you, all the students in your class, you want them to be able to learn the course content, do well in their life. So yes, so it's even now when I hear about my students who have graduated, they come share their stories. We got admission in this graduate school, or we have started a new job. So that's always a source of pride and makes you happy.
Do you see a difference between the earlier batches and the batches that you're teaching right now?
Earlier batches, earlier batches का ये कह सकते हैं कि जो है the class of 2018, when I taught them, yeah, 2019 jo the, since there were fewer students on campus, you had more interactions with them. So they were also more freer or open with you. So जो शुरू वाले batches थे, in the classes, they would share anything that they wanted with me.
How
And there
many
was no hesitation.
students would
They
you
would
have?
stop by my office to do the same as well.
How many students did you have in a class back then?
Same 25 जो है, the initial batch was small, so we even had we even sometimes put all of them in the same section, so you could have 28 students.
Okay. Hmm.
Speaking
Yeah.
of the earlier batches, do you remember your first class at Habib?
I do.
And how was that?
So I think my first class was uh, the engineering workshop class that is offered now for engineering students in
Hmm.
their first year. So that was the class assigned to me in my very first semester जो है, और वो था class of 2018 जो है वो बैठी हुई थी. So I went to the class, and I think Ariba would also tell you the same story. She was in that class. The students did not recognize me as an or identify me as an instructor. Even when I told them, so they thought that someone was pulling their diapers. And I
What?
think a lot of them went after the class, went to their or during the class, has searched, verified कि जो है हाँ बीप की website पे appear हो रहा है या नहीं.
So what did they say?
Uh, पहले तो जो है वो it was just I came in जो है, stood somewhere जो है prominent so that I was visible to everyone, and there were looks of confusion that why is he here, who is he a new student जो है या आगे hire हुआ है. And then when I introduced myself, I think they were looking at each other.
That's a good story.
So ये हबीब में सबको पता है कि DSSC वाले पूरा वक्त होमवर्क्स और क्विज़ करते रहते हैं, and there is a lot of then I mean I don't think this is the correct way to phrase it, but they complain a lot. कि बहुत काम है हमारे पास. So what are your thoughts on that? Because evidently the pressure DSSC students go through, it's very different to the pressure AHSS students go through.
I would say that they're not lying. So homeworks होते हैं जो है, काम होता है, quizzes होते हैं. I can say that from my own course as well कि जो है मैं भी देता हूँ, so जो है उन्हें काम करना पड़ता है. But any instructor in DSSE, if they are assigning a homework to a quiz, whatever the assessment structure is, they do feel that it's necessary to assist the students in building their competency. So one thing that is particular about DSSE courses, and that's something particular about any science course, is that they are built bottom up. So in a hierarchical fashion. So if you don't understand, let's say, things that are being covered in the first few weeks, you won't understand the following weeks. To ensure that students are with us and are understanding things that we will be building up on, that's how the homeworks and quizzes and all those other tools assist or keep a check for students to keep up with the course.
Do you give extensions easily?
My students would be better placed to answer that. I would say I would place myself somewhere in the middle. And I'm not very rigid about it, but I won't allow you to submit the homework one at the end of the semester.
Understandable.
But why is it that DSSE people have so much work compared to ASSS? Because we also get quizzes and homeworks as well. But why is it that they're always cutting?
Standardization.
Okay.
So all the degrees that we offer over here, two of them are engineering degrees, and the other one is computer science. So engineering by its very nature, जो है, it's a professional degree.
Right.
So once you graduate, you are also allowed to practice. You're allowed to build things. The society is putting trust in the university that whoever you are graduating, or the government is putting that trust, they are qualified to practice their profession. The same is true for any kind of professional degree. If you think about medicine, law, all of them, their graduates are allowed to practice. Uh, but even for the computer science degree, there is standardization that a computer science graduate or an electrical engineer or a computer engineer at the time of graduation, they are expected to have these competencies. So, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
So there is a global debate already that the over time, since let's say post World War II to this point in time, we have done a lot of things in science and technology. What should the students know in a 4-year degree? There's debate that should it even be 4 years long, considering the amount of information, the amount of skills they're required to build. There is an ongoing debate I think, for not many years now, to make it a 5-year degree.
Who is
That
your
makes sense, I
what is one of your favorite courses that you've taught?
Sorry.
Favorite course? So I think I like all the courses I've taught, but a few of my favorite courses in recent years. So I'm interested in robotics. I recently started teaching robotics, so all robotics courses, I do like them by their very nature. I've taught the first year engineering course for a few years now. Before that time, before the first time that course was offered, I had not taught first years. I typically did not teach first year. The courses that I used to teach, the earliest they appeared was in this fourth semester. So that was an interesting experience for me, that as soon as the students were admitted, they were interacting with me. So that came as in a very pleasant surprise to me, because when I teach students in their third year, um, I feel like they're jaded. So looking at those optimistic faces in the
Yes.
first semester, that was something very.
Yeah, that is very true, because when freshies come in their first semester, they're so different, and as soon as they reach their third or fourth semester, they are completely different.
Their outlook on life is different. शुरू में होप होता है, उम्मीद होती है कि कुछ करेंगे.
कितने ख्वाब दिखाए होते हैं ना?
But that's interesting, because before I taught that class, I thought कि जो है ये आते ही ऐसे हैं. So the first time that I taught that course, I started thinking कि जो है अच्छा आते तो ऐसे नहीं है, हम क्या कर रहे हैं जो ऐसे.
क्या ही कर रहे
We
हैं.
are the problem. कुछ तो हम कर रहे हैं गलत, कि इनका पूरा नजरिया ही बदल जाता है एक साल में. Yeah, I remember when I had in my first semester, I used to be so fascinated, and things were of course new, but now I feel like वही same जो है रोज आ रहे हैं, कुछ difference नहीं feel होता.
सेम लोगों से मिल रहे हैं, सेम खाना खा रहे हैं.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But you're taking new courses.
Yes. That is a good.
I would think that excitement for the course would still be there. It's still something completely new.
So I was talking to my sister about this as well, and she said, you're at that point where you're doing the required courses that you have to do. So it's not exactly what you want to do, but it's kind of that. So you kind of just like, हाँ सही है करना है, कर लेंगे. थोड़ी चीज़ interesting है, थोड़ी चीज़ें नहीं है. So I think that's the point जो होता है junior year में and sophomore के end में.
Yeah, that's true. I think
Mm-hmm.
electives में तो फिर जो है you're making that you have autonomy. You're making that choice to take that
Exactly, yeah.
elective. So yeah.
Yeah, and if we compare ourselves to students in other universities, I think we're in a far better space and place
Mm-hmm.
because the opportunities and the kind of resources that we have here, I don't think kahin aur hai. I mean, I talk to my friends from other universities, and they're in a very miserable condition, especially government universities. तो हमारी तो हालात क्या कहते हैं बहुत
Miserable in terms of resources के
हम्म,
labs नहीं है, classrooms नहीं है
मेन
या
तो उनका है कि इंस्ट्रक्टर्स का कोई अता पता नहीं है एज इन क्लास में पढ़ाते हैं फिर उसके बाद देयर फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन आई केम हियर द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ ऑफिस आवर्स इट वाज very new
हम्म,
because school में होता था but you know it was not like this कि अच्छा there's a designated time and faculty members specially take out time for you and even if you're not available during
हाँ,
that time they can take out time for you दूसरे उसमें तो यहाँ पे आके when I saw this तो मुझे लगा कि people are genuinely you know interested in putting in effort but it's not the case in other universities especially medical universities.
true. And I would actually say that that's global.
Okay.
This is something very, or maybe I don't want to say unique to Habib. That Habib is the only
Mhm.
university in the world, but very few universities exist in the world, operate in the world, where faculty is spends so much time with the
Mm.
students and is that available to the students.
Yeah, I think this is why it is called a student-centric
Yeah.
experience.
Do you think that students do take the opportunity to, though, like, do they use office hours properly? Do they come and meet you?
Not as much. So I think partly that's because, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
that they have a lot of commitments. There are you have classes, you have your assessments that you need to complete, and partly because this is the only university you have experienced. So
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
it's difficult if you've not experienced other universities. Difficult to make a comparison that what is good over here and what should you take the most benefit out.
Mm.
So yes, I would like that students avail my office hours, avail this opportunity during the 4 years to take their faculty's time and discuss things with them, which I don't think students are utilizing as much as they should.
And sorry.
Okay, so the thing is that I've been talking to a couple of students about why we don't go to office
Mhm.
hours, and a lot of them are just saying कि जाके क्या बात करें, नहीं है कोई सवाल क्लास के बारे में तो क्या बात करें, and then they're also like intimidated कि they know a lot more than us. What's our level of even talking about normal things?
अच्छा इसमें जो है what I would say is that वही जो previous batches का अगर आप difference देखें तो जो शुरू वाले batches थे they did not just come to you for courses. uh, वो ऐसे ही आ जाते थे.
Hmm.
So the office hour is a dedicated period for the students. The questions don't necessarily have to be
Hmm.
regarding the course. Okay, so see.
सारे कैसे
में अगर आप देखें तो जो है उनसे सबसे ज्यादा वास्ता पड़ता है. So
Mhm.
my pod.
Yeah.
So people in my pod, you interaction होता है. मुनीरा ये they can consider or question
LMS that we're using.
शुरू से where yes जो है रात के
To ask us three questions. It could be us as representatives of the student body or just us as individuals.
And you can ask us anything.
interesting hmm. क्या है आपकी सबसे बड़ी फैकल्टी से शिकायत क्या है
शिकायत
एंड अटेंडेंस नहीं जवाब देना
नहीं मेरे
वो
मेरा
भी
तो चल
है।
जाता है
हाँ,
वो
मेरा
था।
भी हो जाता है। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह
हाँ,
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह।
सो इट देयर इज नो जनरल शिकायत ऐसे एक दो से है कि जैसे एक प्रोफेसर है वो फीडबैक नहीं देते
और एक वही सेम प्रोफेसर है वो, उनसे मुझे वाइब ऐसे आती है कि बाद में अगर मैं उनसे बात करना चाहूँ तो वो मुझसे नहीं बात करना चाहते कि उनका वर्किंग आवर्स खत्म हो गए, कि बाद में नहीं
मतलब क्लास से
करना
बाहर he doesn't seem
Approachable.
approachable.
Yeah.
Because when we were taking course with him last semester, he released grades on the last day and just gave us marks, zero feedback. So we don't know क्यों हमने मार्क्स लूज भी किए, अगर किए तो कहाँ हमने इम्प्रूव किया, कहाँ इम्प्रूव करना चाहिए था. So yeah, I hope the course evaluations.
बेसिकली एक ही शिकायत है, एक ही प्रोफेसर से और कोई ऐसा
So
नहीं.
ये तो
Yeah, I've
रीजनेबल
had good professors.
हाँ, they've been good otherwise.
और all right, so I have two more options. Say it. So in terms of courses, do you feel that Habib is lacking in some way? कि ये वाला कोर्स ऑफर होना चाहिए, नहीं होता, ये वाला सब्जेक्ट डिस्कस नहीं होता.
Yeah, so a marketing course on its own. So a lot of time communication वाले courses are considered कि marketing उसमें आ जाएगी, but as such we don't cover it in a full proper way. So I think marketing course, and secondly something entrepreneurial business related should be here. I'm not saying कि अलग department बना दे, but at least some courses regarding it.
Can't think of anything right now, but बायोलॉजी को इन्होंने माइनर अभी तक नहीं किया ना?
कर दिया.
कर दिया है, ओके
It's a biosciences minor.
ओके.
It's not called biology, लेकिन जो है वो minor तो आ गया.
But yeah, I think I would prefer more film courses.
that
Some more, like core film courses जिसमें proper सिखाया जाए. Although अभी भी हैं, but they're very less.
Last question. So, what's your perception of engineering? Engineers क्या करते हैं?
वो लैब से निकलते हैं और उनकी आंखें लाल होती हैं, उनके बाल ऊपर होते हैं और वो आते हैं देखते हैं दुनिया को, अरे भाई कहाँ आ गए, उसके बाद वापस चले आते हैं.
उनकी दुनिया लैब में शुरू और लैब में खत्म.
हाँ. उनसे आप बात भी कोई चीज के बारे में करना चाहें तो वो बस अपना गिनवाना शुरू कर
वो
देते
बस
हैं.
अपना टाइम टेबल दिखा देते हैं हमें कि ये देखो.
अरे मैंने तो टाइम मांगा, तू तो बता रहा है कि कल कितना एग्जाम है.
हाँ.
Okay, आप बात किस टॉपिक पे करना चाहिए?
किसी भी वेदर के बारे में बात कर लो, वो भी नहीं करेंगे.
So one thing that I don't understand is कि so हम CND वाले हैं, हमें भी काम, अब जैसे आजकल हमारा बिल्कुल पीक मिड टर्म पीरियड चल रहा है, तो we're very, we have shoots all the time, but we actually enjoy that and we love doing that. But इंजीनियरिंग वालों के चेहरे पे वो खुशी नजर नहीं आती. Although ऐसे बहुत students हैं who are very passionate about what they're studying. I have friends in electrical engineering as well. But they're still, they still don't enjoy when they're taking classes, when they're working in labs. So I don't understand. There's a conflict there. तो वो मुझे समझ नहीं आता कि ऐसा क्यों है.
I feel like I've only seen them happy once their midterm projects and everything is done and they're like, हाँ ये चल गया था. That's what the happiness
Yeah,
is.
because we genuinely look forward to our final projects, midterm projects. मतलब हमें वो खुशी होती है, excitement भी होती है. लेकिन वहाँ ऐसा नहीं होता. तो वो मुझे समझ नहीं आता.
And have they responded in some way? I'd be curious to.
कल 4 क्विज़ेस हैं, 3 असाइनमेंट है, जाओ यहाँ से.
नहीं, वो खुशी पे जो है वो क्या रिस्पॉन्स था उनका? खुशी क्यों नहीं है?
I think maybe इसलिए नहीं क्योंकि इतना वर्कलोड है कि वो लोग उसको एंजॉय ही नहीं कर पाते शायद.
Maybe they're not able to absorb what they're doing properly.
They can't savor the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's true. I think I felt the same, that our students don't get time to reflect. And I don't know how to change that.
They're asked to reflect in discussion posts. तो उसमें तो क्या reflect करेंगे वो लोग?
अब डिस्कशन पोस्ट रात के 12 बजे से पहले लिखने.
I think जहाँ पे वो marking और grading वाला aspect आ जाता है ना, so I think we all lose our curiosity and wonder. We stop asking questions because we're only looking at अच्छा grade आना चाहिए बस, because GPA maintain करके रखनी.
So I also feel that's where we also fall into the pseudo intellectual trap, where we try to intellectualize everything that we're thinking. Even if someone wants to say कि ये समझ नहीं आया, they'll say it. And I feel that the correspondence between this and this was not right, and वो थोड़ा सा करके लिखेंगे.
True. But yeah, thank you so much for giving.
Oh wait,
us
last
your-
question.
Yeah.
If anyone, okay, so that if who do you think should definitely come on the show?
सबको लेकर आए, किसी को भी ना बख्शें.
पर आपकी कोई स्पेसिफिक रिक्वेस्ट है?
अभी तक कौन आ चुके हैं?
डॉक्टर अंदर आ चुके हैं, मिस मनीरा आ चुकी हैं,
यूसुफ किराई आ चुके हैं, डॉक्टर वकार आ चुके हैं,
मासूद इचकी आ चुकी हैं, डॉक्टर एरन आ गए.
डॉक्टर हुमैरा को हम अगले हफ्ते बुला रहे हैं.
Which doctor हुमैरा?
डॉक्टर हुमैरा कुरैशी. आपके वार्ड में से तो बहुत सारे लोग कवर हो गए.
हाँ.
और कौन किसको बुलाया? हमने रोहामा को बुलाया था.
डॉक्टर वकार सलीम को भी बुलाया था.
हसीब शेख को बुलाया था.
हाँ, उनको भी बुलाया था हमने. डॉक्टर हया को भी नहीं, प्रोफेसर हया को भी बुलाया हुआ है. जैन सईद को भी हमने इनविटेशन दी हुई है.
We're trying to get Dr. Numan Naqvi.
Yes.
He's not responding to our email. I think we
Go
need
to his
invade
office.
his
Yeah, we need
office.
to.
यही करना पड़ेगा.
कोशिश तो सबको करने की ही है, मगर
I think we should also call Dr. Saab. He's
Oh.
an interesting
ओके
person. Yeah.
सबको बुला.
सब बस ये तो स्पेसिफिक नहीं है जिनको एक आपको स्पेसिफिक सवाल पूछवाना हो,
कि आपको उन्हें देखना हो.
कुछ रिवेंज सिचुएशन को तो कर सकेंगे.
Specific सवाल. Ma'am, I'm going through the list of faculty members. कौन है? डॉक्टर आमिर हसन को बुलाएं.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
so